What's up, guys? Erebus here. Very excited. The Dark Souls Remaster is almost upon us. I got about 10 days until this bad boy comes out. And as most of you know and participated in, there was a network test on the 11th and 12th that I put a good, 8 hours into, maybe 9 hours between the 2 days. Would have liked to have done more, but I had a bunch of, life stuff to do as well. So I didn't get to put quite as much time in there as I'd like, but I have a ton to talk about, like an absurd amount. So I'm going to try to get through it all. Now this first clip is just the tail end of my PvE adventure. Once I had finished exploring the area that we were given for the network test, the Undead Parish, with a few areas, blocked off, of course, because Dark Souls has tons of places to go and different shortcuts and stuff. All that stuff was locked. It was just the parish, with the boss of said parish, the gargoyles. See right there. I still remember to get the tail axe. I remember that's a thing in Dark Souls 1. You can cut things' tails off. But yeah, so I just kind of wanted to give a brief intro while this is going on, because there's not too much to talk about with the actual fight that's happening. But just in terms of overall feel, this remaster looks really good. It looks really good, and it feels really good. I've missed the shit out of Dark Souls 1. I've only actually played it one single time years ago, so I'm really excited. Now first, just a couple things. There were some quality of life changes put in here along with the graphics upgrades and stuff, and this is the most important damn thing in the world. Button mapping. Thank God. But now you might be asking yourself, how different is it from Dark Souls 3, if that's all you've played? Well, there's a lot of similarities. Hosts still die to PvE. It's definitely still a thing. People still AFK. Quite a bit, actually. I ran into quite a few AFK hosts here. People still die before you load into the world, because, it couldn't be Dark Souls if that didn't happen sometimes. And whatever the shit this was, because the community is just so weird. I found this guy just out here praising uncontrollably. I think he was just excited. And I share that excitement. I've missed this game, and I can't wait for it to be back with a whole new online community. So fucking exciting. I killed him anyway, because I had to. It was a limited time event. But they're still weird-ass people. Which I wouldn't trade that for the world. And this last clip has pretty much my favorite thing, of course, which you might be able to guess what it is, you might not. That beautiful, beautiful plug pull. Delightful. So, look, if you've only played Dark Souls 3 and, or you're a Soulsborne fan and you just never had time for Dark Souls 1, give it a go. Really give it a go. It's awesome. It is different, but some things translate. Your spacing is still key. You see there I got vortex sucked into a backstab. That's something we'll talk about a little bit later. But this is what happens when you go up against players that know what they're doing. I don't think this was quite my first invasion. I don't think I saved my first one, but this was one of my first invasions in the network test. I'd never PvP'd in Dark Souls 1 before. I was a PvE only player. Look at how horrifying that is. So that's one of the changes. By the way, originally in Dark Souls, you could not have quite as many people in the world. So they've changed that to mimic Dark Souls 3 now. Up to 3 friendly phantoms in addition to the host, and 2 invaders. So 6 people at a time. Here's a parry montage, by the way. I wasn't originally going to talk over this part, but I just have too much to say and not nearly enough time to get through it all. So I am still going to talk over it. So yeah, I had never PvP'd in this game before. The network test was my first experience, and I have to say I was pretty proud of myself. I wasn't stopping everybody and, didn't get up to 99 humanity or whatever in an hour. But yeah, I feel like I did pretty well with starting to learn some of the different mechanics and a little bit how it works, because it is quite different. It's one of those things, it's very similar, but it's very different, so it takes some getting used to, and I feel like I did a pretty good job overall. Um, that gesture, by the way, is going to be the new thing. I can already tell. So hilarious. But the parries are a lot easier in this game than they are in Dark Souls 3. There's not as much guessing with the timing. Pretty much your parry frames start the instant that your shield starts to move when you hit L2. So it's a little bit more sensical, I guess, instead of having to parry, at really weird times. There's also that third R1 parry, just like Dark Souls 3 as well. So there's a fair amount of things that are similar. But overall, I spent a lot of time with it, and I just had a blast. Man, I was playing for the first day, because the second day I didn't get too much time in it. I think the first day I played for an entire 6-hour chunk of one of the tests, and I just had a blast the whole time. People have been complaining pretty hardcore about the remaster, and they still are. And I don't even necessarily disagree with all of the complaints, but at the end of the day, I'm just so excited. This is so much fun. Half the stream, I was just, sitting there with a stupid grin on my face because I couldn't stop being so hyped. That said, like I said, there's some problems here. Some things that weren't fixed that probably should have been. For PC players who had DS Fix installed, the graphics really aren't much to be excited about. And the graphics are a pretty big chunk of what's different here. Most of this, if you have DS1 on PC with DS Fix, you're not getting a whole lot of new stuff other than the influx of players, which to me personally is worth it on its own, honestly. But let's talk about the elephant in the room, or the giant metal armored pigoo in the room, backstabs. So backstabs in DS1 are broken as shit, and to an extent, it's kind of silly and ridiculous and bad, and to an extent, it's just another mechanic that I'll have to learn and get the hang of, and it's fine. So I didn't run into too many really experienced players. Actually, I ran into a whole lot of people that seemed to be brand spanking new, which I thought was interesting. I kind of figured that the network test was just going to be, content creators and a couple diehard fans and stuff like that. But there were a lot of new folks as well. But now the last invasion, I ran into someone who clearly knew how backstabs work in Dark Souls 1. This chap also clearly knows how it works. Forgive the wonky visuals there. I'm not sure if that was a network test bug or if that's just the spacing is kind of funky because it doesn't suck you in like it should. But whatever the case, in the limited amount of time that I had to work with the remaster during the network test, I got backstabbed a hell of a lot. And I paid attention to when they happened and how they happened as well as I could. And even within the space of the couple hours that the test was happening, I feel like I got pretty good with it. One thing that's great about the not omnidirectional rolling is when somebody rolls, you can just walk up behind them and backstab them when they come out of their roll. It's quite bullying, really, but it's it's just another tactic, and it's just another thing that you have to learn if you want to invade or survive invaders when the remaster comes out. And just bullying this guy a little bit, not completely intentionally, but I'm trying to get the hang of it here. And for several people now, I am using the Black Knight Greatsword, which does a stupid amount of damage. Particularly because whenever I ran into not solo hosts, when there were groups involved, I needed that damage. And I didn't want to bother with a weapon that did like 40 damage, because anything you pick up here you can't upgrade. It's all base level and whatnot. But yeah. So like this guy, for instance, I actually got a mini chain going here. Unknown if I could have kept it going if he had survived, but 2 backstabs in a row, nothing he could do about it. I feel like I'm getting the hang of it already, and yeah, if not, anyway, I'm just excited to have something else to learn because I feel like DS3 is kind of, I've kind of reached my peak of where I'm going to go. I'm certainly not the best at PvP in Dark Souls 3, but I don't feel like I'm going to improve much beyond where I'm at. I've kind of hit my ceiling. Now, one thing that I do hope is changed for the actual release is we did have quite a few instances of gankers spawn camping invaders. So that last clip, they had set up a trap for me, and this one they just swarmed me. And there's actually 4 of them. You'll see the full trap here as I try to come down. Now, I actually don't survive long enough to fall into the trap, but there was another guy on the stairs waiting for my attempt to escape. So that kind of sucked, and luckily I didn't run into it too much. I think actually those were the only 2 times that it happened to me. But I know I've been watching everyone else's videos about the remaster and everything, and a lot of people have been complaining about it, and it seemed to have happened to some people quite a bit. So I certainly hope that changes, because having one spawn point literally right next to the bonfire and one spawn point right next to the boss log, probably not great. So hopefully that's not indicative of the final product, and that's just what they did for the network test. If that is what the final product is, that's bad, and I'm going to be pretty irritated. But again, we don't know, so we'll see. Now, over the course of my time with the network test, I've actually read into primarily solo hosts. Only a few groups. I mean, not a few, but there were a lot, but there were a lot more solo hosts. Probably 2 or 3 times as many solo hosts as groups. Which did raise a question, which others have asked too, and that question is, how does invading even work in the remaster? Because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, originally when Dark Souls 1 released, there was no prioritization for who you invaded. It was just random. You hit that red eye orb and somebody was ready to get invaded, so you invaded them. But there was talk at one point ahead of the network test, also just with some of the information that we were getting, with some of the mechanics being likened to DS3, now with the higher amount of people that could be in a world, with the password summons, with some degree of like summon and invasion ranges, possibly. There's something going on with that. So with all that stuff, it was definitely asked, like, how are invasions going to be prioritized? Because in Dark Souls 3, it prioritizes, dried fingers first, of course. But aside from dried fingers being active, it prioritizes based on how many people are in the host world, on the host side. So a host with 3 phantoms is a much higher priority for invasion than even a host with a phantom. And both of those are more important than a solo host, which is why you hardly ever run into solo hosts in Dark Souls 3 unless, at least that's why you never used to run into solo hosts, I'll put it that way. We run into solo hosts a lot now in Dark Souls 3 because the community's dying out a little bit. People are getting too hyped for Remaster, so not as many people are playing 3, so you get more solo hosts, but, back in the day it was always groups because they were prioritized. So we still don't know how that's going to work for sure in Remaster. From my experience, it looks like it is completely, random. There doesn't seem to be any prioritization whatsoever for groups, but that's, it's purely anecdotal. I don't know yet. We're not really going to know until it releases for sure, but that certainly seems to be the case. Now, talking about some mechanics, by the way, as well, there were some changes, and some things are not changed at all. Now, I don't necessarily have clips of these things. I did a small bit of testing myself. Mostly, I got the information from watching other people who did better testing. But some of the old tricks and trades from Dark Souls 1, toggle escaping is still a thing. If you don't know what that is, if you're getting hit by something and you're going to be stunned, you just click the D-pad left or right to switch your equipment, and it gives you enough poise to get out of whatever's happening, which is invaluable if you're in the middle of a gank. or there were some weapons, I believe, in the original release that had infinite stun lock. I don't know if that's still the case here. We didn't really have a wide enough array of weapons to test to find that out, but at least in a ganking situation, that's going to be helpful. Backstabs are unchanged. We talked about backstabs already, but that's not any different from before. So being sucked in from 5 feet away can happen. Being backstabbed while you're facing somebody can happen. It operates just like it used to, no changes. One of the more interesting things is that dead angling seems to be gone. I didn't do too much testing with that one myself. I did try a couple of times to get some good old dead angle damage to no avail, but just looking around the community and checking out other people's adventures and experiences, it seems like it is very much gone. Look at this guy trying to bring the DS3 meta in here with his big slow weapon and his quick small weapon. GG. But yeah, so dead angling was pretty much the best way to get around shields and kind of nullified shield's usefulness to an extent in PvP. Basically, dead angling was unlocking on and hitting your opponent in such a way that you actually hit around the shield. And that seems to no longer be possible. So, what's kind of interesting about that is the original Dark Souls 1 really didn't have much of an emphasis on infusion, weapon infusion, because there was no need for it. You know, infusion's primary benefit is to chip through shields, but when you can just hit around the shield, you don't really need to chip through them. So we might see a lot more focus on infusions now, which will be interesting. But yeah, at any rate, so what did we talk about? Toggle escaping is still there. Dead angling is not there. Backstabs work the same way that they did. There's a technique called reverse rolling. I didn't try that at all because I've never even heard of it before the network test. But it was brought up at one point and I did a bit of research on it. But that apparently is still in the game. So if that concerns you, there you go. That's still possible. That's a technique that I'll have to learn when the remaster actually drops. Because, like I said, I've never even heard of it before this last weekend. But again, I'm brand new to PvP in this game. So it's going to be, hopefully, I think, fun for you guys. And it'll definitely be fun for me. For me to just learn the mechanics all over again. To learn how to invade all over again. Because it's, you know, it's similar enough that I was able to go from total noob to, you know, relatively average over the course of a couple hours. But it's different enough that it's definitely going to take some time to get under control and to get the hang of. So I'm really excited for it. I'm really looking forward to it. And I hope you guys are too. I don't know. Like I said, I know the community is kind of split, particularly PC owners with DS Fix are pretty unenthused, especially, or even considering that they get a discount on the remaster because, you know, the original version is also being taken off Steam, so it's kind of a kind of a wonky situation. So I don't blame them necessarily, but I know a lot of people are pretty mixed feelings about it. They have mixed feelings, which I agree with. You know, we're getting to the end of the video now. I think I've gotten through everything I want to. So as far as specifics, so just to talk about overall sort of takeaways here. I saw a meme recently that said, you know, Dark Souls Remastered. Cons, same broken piece of shit we played, you know, however many years ago. Pros, same broken piece of shit we played however many years ago. And I kind of feel like, to an extent, that's kind of my opinion. I'm really hyped for it. I've been saying for a long time, it doesn't really matter to me what's different. Just the fact that we're getting Dark Souls on PS4 and we're going to have a whole new community to play with, that is all I ever needed. And, you know, I have a job and can spend $40 without, you know, having to break the bank or not eat or whatever. So for me, I didn't really need much to be happy. And to be fair, they're not really giving us much, but I'm happy because I didn't need much. If anything, really, just the repopulated community would have been worth my $40. I would have paid $60. Just let's be real here. I would have paid $60, even if it didn't look hardly any different. Even if nothing was really changed, just for the new community, I would have paid $60. So take that and my other opinions for what they're worth. But yeah, we're gonna have a lot more time to talk about Remastered once it releases, because I'm going to be playing the absolute shit out of this game, because I'm incredibly excited. But that's sadly, regrettably, going to be it for now. The Remastered the network test did end. It's over. Now we have to wait for the commercial release before we can get in there for any more. But being a bitter Dark Souls 3 invader, I had probably the greatest moment of the network test in this clip right here. Because, yeah, no more fog wall escapes for you fuckers. Alright, cheers guys. Let me know what you think in the comments. Are you excited? Are you pissed off that it's not different enough or whatever? Let me know. Let's have a talk about it. I wish I had more time in the video. Take it easy guys. See you next time.